the quarterback discussion in the chat, man. It's wild. And I wanted to save it for the second segment, but I think it's time. I think it's time to go in on it, Flannel. Okay. So here's the deal. And in the chat right now, look, we all agree. Nate Sudfeld, if he's in the game, you're going to lose.
Yes.
We know that. But the discussion about it was Hendon Hooker did more in 4 downs than Sudfeld did. Here's the reason Sudfeld was out there first. He's been better in practice. And you guys, we haven't been at practice every day.
Sure.
That is keep that in mind. And by the way, too, this whole Hendon Hooker's the second coming thing, I didn't see it that way. Like that throw to DPJ, he was open. He was open, and Hendon Hooker missed him.
I don't think people are saying that he's the second coming. It's just
it sounds like it on here right now, man.
You saw enough out of him to where, and this is his first game action since Tennessee. I know it's preseason, but it's still significant.
And that's
for him.
fair.
You saw something. He was more efficient than Nate Sudfeld. He looked more comfortable than Nate Sudfeld. Obviously, he brings an element of being able to scramble that Nate Sudfeld can't, although that might have bit him at the end going out with the concussion. So with Hendon Hooker, there were kind of mixed results. Did I like what I saw? Absolutely. Was it wowing? Not really, but he also got hurt. And that's the problem. At the end of the day, last night when it comes to the backup quarterbacks, one of them we knew that was terrible, and one of them went down with the concussion. So in that regards, it wasn't really a great night for the backups.
No, and that was something too that am I the only one that thinks this? Does he run kind of recklessly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure because I know how this is going to come off already.
Yes.
And people are going to be like, "Oh, you're a Hendon Hooker hater" and stuff like that. He looks like a guy that hadn't played football in a couple years, and that's fair. I'll give him that. But to act like he walked in there. And, I mean, now granted, when you're starving and someone offers you a cracker, which Nate Sudfeld was hunger, world hunger.
Yes.
Anybody could have come into that game and you'd have been like, yeah, that guy's the dude and stuff like that. I didn't see the Hendon Hooker thing the same way everybody else saw it. Is it me? What is the deal with that?
Well, the only question I would ask you, would you feel more comfortable with him as the backup going into the season than Nate Sudfeld? I think that's more the question the thing that Lions fans are holding on to. He didn't look terrible. He looked like he belonged to some extent. That's what I would ask you, Hendon Hooker or Nate Sudfeld?
He's not going to win a football game for you either.
Probably not this year.
So, it's the same. I know it's not the same, but the end result in an NFL game. So, going into San Francisco, Jared Goff gets hurt in the first quarter. Who's winning that game?
Neither of them.
So, what's the difference?
I have more faith in Hendon Hooker.
That's at San Francisco, though. I was about to say, that's at San Francisco.
But this is where we're going now. And I'm wrapping it all back to this. The Super Bowl is the expectation.
Yes.
It is the expectation now. So these are the waters we're in.
Right.
So it's either Hendon Hooker can win you a game or you have to go get somebody else. That's it.
Who are you going to get? Well, Simeon's the only one who's a reasonable option. Other than that, it's like Matt Barkley.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's literally Trevor Simeon is the only backup quarterback available that you'd have to trade for Taylor Heineke.
And I saw that in the chat, too. They said, I saw a mock draft where, do you give up a 7th-round pick for Heineke? And, I suppose if you wanted to go that route, but they're in the same boat. They're not in the business right now of giving away quarterbacks that can play. I
think, though, that when you have Kirk Cousins and you have Michael Penix, do they really need Taylor Heineke? And I understand Kirk Cousins is coming back from Achilles and Michael Penix is a rookie, but Michael Penix was a top 10 pick. They invested a lot in him. And he also is a little bit of an older player who played last season, who I think is going to come in and be somewhat NFL ready. I don't hate that option of trading a 7th round for Taylor Heineke. I know that next season he's a $4.5 million cap hit, but when you're smack dab in the Super Bowl window, which the Lions are, and I'm saying,
say that again, because that's where they are.
Yes.
Remember this when we talk about the whole Hendon Hooker situation. I did not walk out of last night's game going, Hendon Hooker can win you a football game in the regular season.
Well, if you're smack dab in the middle of your Super Bowl window, which the Lions are, and you don't have faith in Hendon Hooker, and I'm talking about the coaching staff, not us, then you have to consider getting somebody else, because there have been too many situations throughout history in which backups have actually saved the season. I mean, I could name a bunch of them right now. You had Joe Flacco last year. Would the Browns have made the playoffs with Dorian Thompson-Robinson? Absolutely not. You had Chad Henne come in a couple of games that Patrick Mahomes missed and make some big plays. You have Jeff Hostetler. You have Nick Foles. You even have Jake Browning last season, who came in and was 4-3 as a starter when Joe Burrow went down. You have Earl Morrall going 9-0 in the 1972 Dolphins season. You have Teddy Bridgewater going 5-0 in 2019 for the Saints for Drew Brees. And I'm not saying you have to go get Taylor Heineke. What I'm saying is that if there's any question about Hendon Hooker being able to come back from that concussion before the regular season, if you don't
He'll
have
be back next week.
Sure, and that would be amazing. And if you don't have faith that Hendon Hooker, even if healthy, can be a viable backup this season, you have to at least consider trading for a Taylor Heineke. You have no choice.
And look, for me, again, because of what we just talked about, and DNC ENT says, no shit, Neil, San Fran had to play against any backup versus us, we lose. It's a backup. Right, that's my point. So this goes back to last year. This is a fundamental thing with me, where you had the Mazaways saying that they should give Teddy Bridgewater $8 million. Remember, that's a quote. That's a quote. And I was like, why? For what? If he plays, you lose. Like that's the way that it is. So, I mean, for me, if this is what it is, I'm not really interested in giving up draft capital. If it's a seventh rounder, maybe. I don't like the money. I don't like the money for Heineke.
That's fair.
I don't like that at all.
Heineke, though, he was a starter a couple years ago and actually played pretty well. He was a starter even on a playoff game against the Buccaneers in 2020. And I get it. Taylor Heineke, not necessarily going to be the savior. But if there are any questions about Hooker, it's something you have to consider, because I'm not concerned with a seventh-round draft pick. I'd be a little bit more concerned with the $4.5 million personally.
I have faith that Hendon Hooker would be able to come in and win you a game.
Fair.
I do, because you look at it, he'd be playing behind the best offensive line in football with insanely good receiving threats like an Amon-Ra St. Brown, a Sam Laporta, a fantastic running back combo in Gibbs and Montgomery. He wouldn't be playing with the guys he was playing with yesterday. And if he goes out there and he has to do a Chad Henne play 2 series because Goff rolled his ankle and he's getting it taped up, I have faith that he'd be able to keep the ship afloat. I have more faith with a guy who has been in this system and has been with Ben Johnson and in this offense for a second year now than bringing in a guy like Matt Barkley. Like, if you want, people are saying Tannehill in the chat. To bring in Tannehill, you're going to have to pay him upwards of $10 million.
No, that's not an option.
Ryan Tannehill's not going to come in here and be the backup for $4 million a year. That's not going to happen.
Right.
So it's either Trevor Siemian or you get Matt Barkley or somebody like that. I'm more comfortable with a guy who's been in this system. You put him with the ones if he has to. I have faith that he could be able to get something done.
And for the record, Spenny, I don't disagree with you. I've got more faith in Hendon Hooker than Neil does, although maybe a little bit less than you, by the slimmest of margins. My point is that if you are in the middle of your Super Bowl window, which the Lions most certainly are, and knock on wood, you can't have who you feel to be incompetence as a backup quarterback. Just in case, because I listed too many examples in which backups were actually important. I understand if there's something catastrophic with what happened to Aaron Rodgers last year, what happened to Tom Brady in 2008. I don't want anybody doing a full season, knock on wood again, but for a couple of games.
Yeah, but you look at the guys you mentioned, none of them were battle-tested backup quarterbacks. Jake Browning isn't this battle-tested backup quarterback. Matt Castle wasn't a battle-tested backup quarterback. What did they do? They were guys that were in the system that got brought in with the ones and were throwing balls to Jamar Chase and Danny Amendola and Rob Gronkowski. So when you put a backup quarterback who's been in the system in there with the best offensive line in football, a top 5 receiver in football, the best running back duo in football, a top 3 tight end in football, he's going to look better than what he is going with the 3s in a preseason game.
Well, hopefully we don't have to find out.
I hope so. Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah. Best case scenario, the only time Hendon Hooker sees the field is in Week 18 when we got the number 1 seed locked up and they're putting the backups out there.